President Trump's raising tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from 25% to 50%. Yeah, they're now in effect. CNN's Vanessa Yurkevich is at the Magic Wall to explain how this major increase may be passed on to consumers. Vanessa, what could be the impact caused by this doubling of those steel and aluminum tariffs?
Yeah, a significant increase for consumers heading their way. Just look at what happened with producer prices in the last month or so, from March to April. Because foreign prices on steel are increasing, U.S. prices of steel will increase because U.S. producers have no incentive to keep prices low. So producer prices on steel up 6% just when there was a 25% tariff. In that same time period, up 2% for aluminum, and we expect those prices to rise. And then ultimately, what does that mean for the producers making all of this stuff that us consumers buy every single day? Well, it will have an impact ultimately. Cars and trucks, home appliances, machinery, airplanes, building materials that we use to build homes, and food and beverage cans. The steel industry saying that they welcome this increase in the tariff because they believe it will create more jobs. But Phil, for every one steel job saved, some reporting indicates from studies that 75 other manufacturing jobs are lost because of the higher inputs into making these goods and services. Also want to draw your attention to how U.S. businesses are trying to skirt some of these higher tariffs. We've been looking at the Dominican Republic. A lot of companies have said that they've been trying to move to Southeast Asia out of China, but we've heard in recent months that companies are looking to the Dominican Republic. Just look at all these different brands that are already manufacturing there, including a new company, World Emblem, the largest producer of patches for clothing. They're going to be opening shop next year, breaking ground this month in the country. Why, Phil? Well, there's a ton of benefits. Just look at this. Free zones. These are sort of industrial parks that allow companies to operate tax-free in certain areas. So you're talking about income taxes that they don't have to pay, transfer taxes, import taxes, saving millions of dollars. Proximity to the U.S., Dominican Republic just days away compared to Asia, which is weeks away, and wages about 30% less to manufacture in the Dominican Republic than Mexico. But Phil, some hurdles. We're talking about space. It's a small island, not a ton of space to manufacture, and because of the size, fewer skilled workers. And then the biggest issue that I've heard from people is people just simply don't know, Phil, that there's a big manufacturing capacity in the Dominican Republic. I asked the CEO of World Emblem how he found out about the Dominican Republic. He's moving 30 to 35% of his production there. This is the reason, and this is why he heard about where to move all of his production. ChatGPT. That's where he got the answer. Just shows wasn't well known to him, but he got his answer from AI, and now he's spending millions there, Phil.
Your story this morning, laying all this out, was absolutely fascinating. Great reporting. Vanessa Yurkevich, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Phil.
We're back with our business leaders, where we hear from small business owners across America about President Trump's tariffs. Some like the tariffs. Many do not. My next guest describes his product as Life Alert mixed with Fixbit, but for houseplants. It's a Bluetooth device to help you care for your plant and keep it alive. The business is called Flora and launched during the pandemic. Founder Abesh Day joins me now from Nashville. Abesh, it's such a unique product. I have a lot of questions about how you actually produce it, manufacturing, supply chain, and what effect tariffs have had on that process.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Phil, thank you so much for having me and highlighting stories like mine for small businesses that are affected by tariffs. So this story inevitably starts all the way back as really an American dream story, an adventure story of me literally turning on my MacGyver's hat to create these plant sensors that act as life alerts, like you said, because I was a serial plant killer back in the day. Through COVID, I was killing every single plant in my line of sight. It was my mom's gifted prize rosebush plant that I killed that inevitably led me to patenting and inventing the sensor so I could basically stop other people from serially killing their plants. We had our breakthrough moment in terms of that American dream journey last year when we actually got onto Shark Tank. All of this demand coming up. And so to feasibly make all of that work in terms of producing our first manufacturing batch, we actually produced it out of China. We had our first 2,000 units come out of China last year to essentially meet the demand out of Shark Tank. And that bill, to give you context in how that relates to tariffs, that shipping bill was about $7,000 to $8,000 all in last year. Now, this year, we have a similar pent up demand over the summer, right? Everyone here around Nashville is getting ready to see their cherry tomatoes blossom and thrive. And so we have all these people ready to kind of pounce on the FloraPods when they arrive. We have another 2,000 batch, same batch as last year. The shipping bill this time around, from the height of the 145% tariffs, was $32,000 to $33,000. Mind you, that's with working with multiple freight forwarders to get it down. So we had to make this choice of, do we literally just take the risk of shipping these out and seeing how it plays out, or do we hold back for us as a small business to make hold of, right? So we decided to wait it out. Luckily, we saw some relief, right, in the 30% zone that effectively became a 50 to 60% effective tax at port, because all these duties, the fentanyl duties, the sector specific duties and taxes all add up. So this time around, our final shipping bill for that same batch, compared to the $7,000 last year, is effectively over $13,000, still a 90% effective hike that we're having to deal with as a small business.
Do you eat that? Do you pass it on? How are you thinking through kind of the long-term effect in terms of that increase?
Yeah. So for us, and I'm not alone when I say this, it's an existential question, right? It's a $30,000 bill initially that became twice the amount effectively, in less than a month's time. It's this uncertainty that we're dealing with. And the last thing we want to do is, with these FloraPods, people buy multiple of these for their plants, right? People buy 2 at a time, 3 at a time. So the last thing we want to do is price hike the pods to where it becomes not affordable at all. And so one of the first things that I did was look to absorbing the costs as much as we could. And so to adapt the administration for some relief, I realized that there was going to be some uncertainty here, but maybe we could get some loan funding to essentially get us through this hectic summer season. We chatted with dozens of banks that work with the SBA. We finally landed over 300,000 funding in the final finish line in terms of approval. Right before it got to underwriting, 2 different banks with the same offers retracted them, touting the tariffs and uncertainty around the government's policies as a risk. It felt like I was hit with this man-made tsunami that the government, kind of pushed through in terms of sweeping policy changes. We were this tiny ship in the middle of the ocean that were effectively drowning, looking for a lifeboat. And the SBA basically said, we don't like the fact that you're drowning out there. Sorry, right? So we're absorbing the cost as much as we can. There's a lot of uncertainty we have to deal with, but we're figuring it out, just like all the 4 million other small businesses that are impacted by these tariffs.
Yeah, the business, one more time, it's called Flora. Abesh Dey, thank you very much for joining. Appreciate it.